And we're live.
Okay, welcome to House Education on Friday, April 18th, 2025. The committee has been taking testimony on H54, an act relating to cell phone free schools. And to end the week, it's very exciting, as it always is, to have students here with us to talk to us about it. So a committee, just so you all know, will continue more testimony next week, including another walkthrough of the bill to make sure we remember sort of like what it's all about and what it does and what it doesn't do. And we'll take suggestions for more testimony as well. But we're lining things up and we'll just keep going. Anyway, I think what we'll do right now is turn it over to our guests to introduce themselves, and we'd really love to hear how it's going at Harwood Union High School.
My name is Megan McDonough, I'm the principal at Harwood. And I'll share a brief overview, and then I think Ellie can jump in a little bit. But why don't you start by introducing yourself?
I'm Eliana Buckingham. I'm a senior at Harwood, and I'm also a student representative on the school board.
I'm Celia Wing. I'm also a senior, and I'm also a student representative on the school board.
So just to provide some context, I can get started. So just about a year ago, we as a Harwood Middle High School community collectively decided to embark on this journey of becoming a phone-free school. It was a collective decision first initiated by the staff after a lot of careful deliberation and discussion. The decision was made in support of increasing connection in learning for all students. At student and community dialogues, we asked a question: how will a break in the use of cell phones increase engagement, connection, and learning at Harwood? And through the collective consideration, we dug into the why, and we prepared for how we would actually implement the new procedures. On day one of this past school year, we were talking about this on our way over. I was struck. I was actually dumbfounded by how smoothly and naturally the students transitioned. On day one, I kept looking around the building, trying to figure out like where there was a potential challenge, but I wasn't seeing any. And as the first week progressed, we expected there to be increased pushback and challenges, but students truly adapted without pause. Seniors were immediately found playing games during their unstructured time in their designated space, something we hadn't seen in a very long time. And at lunch and in the hallways, the truly striking difference was the eye contact that was happening. Students were no longer looking down, but they were looking up. And so there was this natural connection that could occur. And the volume also increased quite a bit in the cafeteria in a good way. Throughout the fall, several schools actually reached out to us. They were eager to visit and to find out about how we had gone through this process and what our learning had been. During each visit, I was truly dumbfounded and struck by the honest reflection that our students shared, the challenges that came in this initial decision, and what their takeaways were through the process. Throughout this year, we've collected and reflected on data in order to consider that initial question of how a break from cell phones can increase connection and learning. And here's some of the data that we've collected so far. So back in October, we actually surveyed the staff and students. 63% of students identified that they felt more engaged in their classes. 93% of staff identified that they felt students were more engaged in their classes. 55% of students said their learning environment had been improved. At least 81% of staff said the same. 51% of students said that they felt more connected to their peers. And 93% of staff observed seeing more connection between students. A fun little fact is in the first month of school, more than 100 additional books were checked out of the library compared to a year before. Last year, over the course of the entire year, we had 9 substantiated hazing and harassment and bullying claims, and 11 in addition were investigated but not substantiated. In comparison, this year we have had 1 substantiated claim and one that was investigated but not substantiated. Academically, one of the most striking data points was the data collected from our semester one. It shows consistent increases in score averages in truly every measure that we looked at, from course scores to individual class scores, averages to learning expectation scores. All measures increased from semester one the previous year in 23-24 to this year in 24-25. We want to recognize that there are multiple factors that could go into this data, but it is hard not to correlate it to the biggest factor, which is that we are now a cell phone free community. I've heard from multiple staff over the course of this year that this is truly the most powerful experience that they have had as an educator, the most powerful and impactful decision that they have been a part of making in terms of the impact that it has had on our community. If we have time, I would love to share with you a video that truly captures that from our staff, where they're saying it themselves. So if we have time, yeah. You want to jump off of that?
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot. As student representatives, we kind of facilitated the survey that went out to the student body that Meg shared data about like how they were feeling, how engaged they felt in the community, how they felt that their academic atmosphere has like improved or declined. And we definitely, we got a lot of responses. I think we got around like 200 something responses, which for our school is great, a good amount of responses. And the data was, I feel like it was actually more surprising to me because at the end of last year, when the administration first announced that we were going to be going cell phone free, there was definitely a lot of pushback and a lot of like, what? This came out of nowhere. And I expected to see almost always negative responses to the survey. And it actually surprised me that a good amount of students were actually like feeling that they benefited from not having a cell phone in their hands or on body 24/7. And personally, at this point, I'm going to be completely honest, in the school year, I don't think about my cell phone. And so coming here is like, I have to dig back into like what I think on a daily basis and how it's not related to my cell phone whatsoever. So basically it's kind of just been normalized at our school now. And I was expecting to still be like just hearing and as representatives on the board, like getting like conflict and reporting on conflict, and it just hasn't happened. And kids aren't honestly thinking about phones and are just more thinking about like, we're both seniors, like where are we graduating?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do over the summer? Like, how are we gonna stay connected to our friends? Like, what are we gonna do for Spirit Week? It's like the classic day-to-day like school things, like that we just think about now. And it's not like what party's happening over the weekend, whose social media post got the most, like there's just like none of that. And obviously kids, when they go home, will probably go on their phones and like have some updates and check in. For me, it's like my friends that I met at summer camp, like how are they doing? But during the day, I'm like there,
Yeah, I would say the only thing I hear about cell phones when I'm at school is like, I can't believe we ever had them.
Yeah.
A lot of the times we'll leave a class and be like, wow, I can't believe last year my phone would have been sitting on the desk next to me. Like, I think that's what I hear the most. And yeah, I would say it really, compared to like computers and like this other technology that people have shifted to, like that is something that can be very limited by teachers and things like that. Whereas the phones, like they're gone and people aren't able to use them. And I would say personally, within like academics, not having my phone at school has made it much easier for me to separate it outside of school. So outside of school, I'm doing my homework. I'm not thinking where's my phone, like how I would have last year, when I'm so, the two, school and phone is so interconnected that it like persists outside of school to me, being unable to function without two of them together.
I was sharing that recently a colleague from a different school was at a dinner party and ran into two Harwood students, and so was asking them some questions about their experience. And one of the students expressed that, you know, a year ago when he had some downtime, he would have just taken out his phone. And now it causes him to think and consider, what can I do with this time? How can I use it differently? And that was one of our big hopes, is to consider how we could increase personal responsibility. And we know much of that is due to actually just presence, being conscious, being aware. And so we partnered this work with also rededication to holding students accountable for being in class when they are supposed to be all of the time. And so it was the partnership of all of these pieces, especially as we continue the transition out of COVID, that we think made a difference.
Could you talk a little bit how it works day to day?
Yeah.
Students walk in, what happens?
So using our leftover ESSER funds from COVID, we purchased, it's a brand, Yonder pouches for our school. And basically what happens is each kid is assigned their own personal Yonder pouch. And we have these specialized magnets at 2 entrances and exits of the school. And so in the morning, when the bell rings, you can go and teachers watch you put your phone in your Yonder pouch and lock it. And then they go about their school day. And at the end of the day, these magnets are set up. And when the bell rings, you can go while you leave school, boop, unlock it, and your phone is out of the Yonder pouch. Also, during the school day, there's a magnet at the main office. So if there is an emergency that occurs or students, it's like, an emergency, you can go to the main office and unlock your phone and use it, call whoever. Yeah.
I would say also day to day, there's also students who you can leave your phone in your car or things like that. But of course, there's students that aren't going to put their phone in their Yonder pouch and it's just going to be in their backpack. And we've talked about how it feels like they're breaking the rules without really breaking the rule. Like the rule is not having your phone, not putting your phone in the Yonder pouch. So they can feel that like freedom of not following the Yonder pouch rule while still fitting into the general no phone policy.
What we made a decision to do is to offer students trust. We were very clear in our expectations and the consequences. That if we saw or heard a device, which included the earbuds, watches going off, or an actual phone, that they'd be confiscated for the day. And so we do not engage in power struggles. We don't ask every single student when they walk into the building to show us that they are putting it in the Yonder pouch. And I think that we believe that made a huge difference, the offering of trust, because we know that that is foundational to a strong and healthy community and culture.
So is the Yonder pouch an option, or is it's the rule, but nobody's enforcing it? The enforcement is more if you see a device out later. In other words, somebody could just
The
keep it in
rule
their
is the
backpack or car all
device,
day long.
right? The rule is the device. The pouch was a tool to help facilitate that.
And I feel that, personally, I'm someone who leaves my phone in the car. So I'm old enough, I drive a car to school and I leave my phone in the car. And so I'm not using the Yonder pouch, but I'm also not bringing my phone into school. So it's just kind of, neither of those are kind of a factor for me to focus on. But I do know of students who use the Yonder pouch as a tool for themselves because they know if my phone is out of the Yonder pouch, I'm going to be inclined to use it. And I know there are students who are also like, I can be off my phone. I don't need the Yonder pouch. And they don't use the Yonder pouch, but their phone is away. So I feel like it was introduced as the norm to use the Yonder pouch, but I feel like it's developed as just like this tool that students can use. And I feel like students are being actually like really reflective on like their own self-restraint and like using it if they feel like they can't help themselves, or not using it because they're developing this habit of being aware that their phone is there, but staying off of it.
Is it a school-wide policy, adults too?
It is not a policy yet, it's a procedure at Harwood, but it is 7 through 12 and adults committed to it as well. And so the feedback from the adults is just gratitude. Gratitude, just like the students, to be able to just be present, right? And to be entirely there. And to have your phone away. And we had to readjust certainly with our families as well, because expectations change with that.
Representative Hunter?
Just wondering for the students, and I'm kind of picturing like the younger students, grabbing their phones at the end of the day. Is there a big crush and rush to get those? You said a couple hundred kids gave surveys. So how many kids in your school?
If we're including the middle school,
Sure.
I would say around like 500, right?
Okay.
Around 500,
So
a
is
little
it-
less maybe.
Feeding frenzy there at the yonder passes?
I mean, there are 3 exits with magnets at the end of the day
There are
too.
3 magnets total.
3 magnets
Yeah, plus the
total.
middle school, so it's 4.
Yeah, 4 magnets, 1 for the middle school, 3 for the high school. And I mean, I feel like at the beginning of the year, there was a bit of a frenzy, like, oh, it's the end of the day, let's go unlock our
Yeah,
yonder
yeah, yeah.
pouches, like, let's go do it, let's get out of here. But I feel like now it's just like, people have developed using it or not using it,
Right.
that the people who use the yonder pouch,
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of you unlock it and you exit the school, you know,
Right.
it's not you unlock it and you stay there and you're on your phone with everyone.
So if you're getting dismissed early for a game,
Yeah,
The front office. So, yeah, so our
Okay.
front office has that magnet so that all of our
Okay.
teams come through the office when they check out.
must be a very special magnet.
It is.
I
Magic.
mean, it's the
It's
company's magnet, so it's specific to the.
You
to
can
the back.
imagine with adolescents that there was a lot of initial consideration of how we can find one of these magnets that would unlock the pouch.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a lot of work done
If
to
someone should
consider
steal it,
that.
God.
And there was a lot of very careful facilitation of where do the magnets go, who's standing by them, who's
Yeah.
putting them back and taking them up. So all of that was thoughtfully considered.
But it's, obviously, it's easy to game the system, burner phone,
Mhm.
whatever.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like students have sort of been, in a way, like, I've got 3 sons, they're all older, but one of them is like, he has to leave his phone at home during the day
Yeah.
because otherwise he's on it. So it just seems interesting that, I would imagine there are kids who, are sort of thankful for the excuse to just not have their phone on them.
That was a big part of the
Yeah,
discussion
yeah.
last year.
And phones are a very like Ellie, if she went on her phone right now, I'm gonna be like, wait, what am I doing? Like, I need my phone too, you know,
It's,
so,
yes,
yeah,
it becomes such a social like norm.
Yeah.
right? Like
And a
an
fear of missing out.
accessory, honestly.
yeah,
Um,
a big fear of this.
yeah, that everyone's kind of in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're the odd one out or, you know, it's the general consensus of what's going on.
Or even to be the one person, you break the rules, you go on your phone, there's nothing to do, there's no one to talk to.
Yeah.
No one, all my friends were at school without their phones, like, yeah,
Who do I text?
yeah,
Exactly.
And then you don't have to text anyone and you put the phone down.
I have 3 children at the school right now, and my oldest is also a senior. And the day she received notification by email that she got into the top school of her choice, she was beyond herself excited. She came running to my office to tell me, right? And then when I wasn't there, she picked up my landline to call her father, right? She didn't go and grab her phone. And to me, that says something about the fact that we've shifted a culture, right? Her instinct wasn't to grab her cell phone. She had a different instinct in that moment. And I think that that's what's been so powerful about this experience is that, yes, there are many ways to game the system, but it has become a cultural norm.
Right.
And it was a decision that was made with complete consensus across the staff as well.
Representative McCann.
2 questions. What was the price tag? And the other question is, I teach at U32 and device security for teachers. We use the cell phone to get to something called off point, to get a little code to get us into the computer each morning.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering like what your security is like and how
Mm.
your staff doesn't need the cell phone to get onto the
Yeah,
system.
so the price tag for the pouches was around $20,000.
And that includes the magnets.
Yep. It included everything. So that was a big consideration for us, is how we were going to manage that. And we have a different authentication process at this point, but we're able to work around it. We don't need our phones all of the time in order to get in and out. So that was not an issue for us at all. That said, we've also been clear with students, we're professionals, right? So in the morning before students arrive, we need our phones out to be doing something. The general expectation is they're away from students, right? When you are with students. So if you're in your office and it's in your door, but when you're in front of students, you're present. Right?
And I have a quick ask. Can you say hello to Jason Rick?
Yeah,
He's my TA leader.
and my mother, Ann Zecker. We're excited.
You got it.
Talk a little bit about how the school handles communication with students and parents, and where that fits into your policies.
Big question for us, was around when game schedules are changed, right? We use a program to communicate with our students that can be by email as well for game changes. So we do that. Sometimes, at first we thought we were going to do a lot more announcements. But that actually hasn't been the case. I don't feel like we have a lot of interruptions throughout the course of the day. Of course, we're able to do that when needed. In terms of our regular communication with parents, that's via email.
I just email.
Mhm.
Okay, so you don't use Parent Square? Okay.
That is not something I use.
Yeah, and I feel like with phones away and being on your computer, you're like checking your email is something that I feel like, since it's such a necessity for communication, students have understood, like, if I need to communicate with someone, I'm going on my email, I email my parents during the day. It's not like I'm texting my parents, like, I don't want to say I'm glued to my email because that sounds bad, but like the way I communicate during school days through my email on my computer when I have times when my computer is out. And that's just how it is.
I think one consideration or concern or wonder for us was around the challenge of Chromebooks showing up into class not charged.
Okay. I was
Again,
just
this,
about that yesterday.
yeah, again, this goes back to personal responsibility. It's amazing when you remove the other devices, how those magically begin to be charged.
Yeah.
And how students respond and read their email with more frequency. So again, I think it's building the systems that will support, foster the skills for later on in life as well, which was our goal.
Representative Brady?
Is it required, you already hit one of my questions, and more collaboration from your IT folks in terms of, also a high school teacher, so knowing that often things are more accessible or more quickly on a phone, that, we've had trouble with certain software that's meant to keep the bad stuff out. That means like a kid can't read an article in the New York Times. This sort of constant loop of tech challenges that,
I think
they're sometimes created through school systems. And so I wonder what kind of systems work you've had to do to stay on top of that so that it doesn't become a sort of roadblock.
Yeah. Again, I will say surprisingly, it has not caused as many roadblocks as we thought. The initial list of questions and concerns that we brainstormed as a staff a year ago was very lengthy. And we just went one by one and began to problem solve them. And some of it we said, let's just wait and see. And so many of the things that we thought would be difficult ended up not being, quite honestly. We found different ways to problem solve. We do have our art department and our music department. They do have cell phones, right, that allow for videoing and photography, but don't have any data, right? So that they're not set up to be cell phones, and those are actively used for a multitude of reasons. So we came up, we just started to gather different learning tools and think about it differently in that way. We've become so reliant on it, but there are plenty of other options, is what we discovered.
To add on a little bit, from the student perspective of like, we use, our IT administration uses GoGuardian, Block, and occasionally there are problems where I try to go on New York Times or I try to go to watch this educational video on YouTube and all of a sudden it's blocked. And I mean, I don't really know why, but if it's blocked, we just find another pathway. Like, you know, it's not like you're there and you stop and you can't do anything about it. You know, like, oh, I can't get an article on New York Times. Hey, my teacher, do you mind printing this out for me so I can have a paper form of it? And then next time my teacher assigns an article for us to read, it's in paper, you know? It's like, there are other ways you can go around it. And like, to still get the, you know, the goal, the education goal or whatever, even if that block is there. It's not like a hard wall that you can't cross, but it is a factor, you know? I mean, there are occasional instances where you can't access a certain thing. But that's just because it's technology.
What about, sort of social life organizing, which I know should take place outside of the school day, but, you know, if you're on a team, but it's not an official team thing, but maybe the team members are like, hey, let's all have dinner at my house tonight or something like that. Has that changed how you do that, or is it all
I don't
text
know.
rather than
I would say,
Facebook or, you know?
yeah, I don't think those things were ever planned that much inside of school in the first place. And I would say I'm on the cross country and track teams, and there is already a lot of students that don't use social media on my team. So we opted to just use text messages. And I think anytime you would want to communicate about that with parents, you would always opt to using email. So I would say I haven't seen it as a large problem.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, this is more for like team updates and not necessarily, oh, let's all have a dinner at my house, but more like we have a game or we have a meet coming up. Let's all wear, you know, some formal dress to celebrate, is through a app called SportsU, which we use out of school, you know, or say we're all at practice and we just verbally talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
But that application you can just access on your Chromebook that the school has.
yeah,
for you.
so sign in.
Well, first of all, thank you, for your testimony, but also for the data gathering that you
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
post implementation. I think that's really helpful, for us.
I think one final question that I heard was out there was around, you know, to be very honest, I think that parents had a harder time. with
Oh, I
the
meant to ask
transition.
about parent reaction, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that parents were incredibly anxious about it.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the natural questions that comes up is just around student anxiety and how that was supported. And we spent a lot of time preparing that for the start of the year. And again, we're struck by actually how little was needed to support on that end. And in total, you know, we have about 490 high school students and 136 middle school students. And across the board, we have 14 students who, because of their individual education plan, might have some extenuating circumstances. But that includes using a Yonder pouch that has a Velcro, using noise canceling headphones, right? And everyone knowing that that's the case. Or in some cases, having a plan that allows them to come to the front office if they need to call home for some reason. But I share that because that is a very small number, right? In comparison to, I think, what a lot of people are concerned about.
How did your parents react?
Yeah, my parents personally like didn't have any problems with it, but I also never communicated with them that much inside that school system.
I mean, my parents are both public educators here in Vermont, and they were honestly like, yes. They were like, oh, finally. But actually one of my friend's parents was actually really concerned about not being able to reach her. She's a single parent, and it's like that the only way of transportation is her. And so if circumstances change, there's no way to contact. But I mean, all they do now is they email each other, and there's a phone in the front office, you know, kids aren't like unable to contact their parents. Like you just go to the front office, be like, hey, Sam, and can I use the phone? And he's like, yeah, of course. And you just call whoever, and that's available. So it's like, there are ways around it.
I can't help but think, when I was in high school just down the street here, we had an indoor student smoking lounge.
Yeah.
And you look back on that, you
Yeah.
cannot believe that we had something like that. Like, thinking about the parallels to this.
Indeed, indeed.
Committee, any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, this has really been helpful for us and appreciate your time today and thank you very
Thank you
much.
for having us. Yeah.
So we have some other young people in the room. Would you guys like to offer any comment on the issue of phone-free schools? I realize this is catching you out of the blue, that's not why you're here.
Deer in the
But we
headlights.
we always like to take advantage of the fact that there are students in the room with us.
No,
Does your school have a policy
yeah, you can only have it during the morning.
during the
Like,
morning?
yeah, it's like 7:50. And after that, you have to put it away for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
And
and
I don't really know it that well, but it could like compensate and stuff like that. If you use it, so.
We're actually reinstating the phone policy because it was not working before. So we'll see how that works.
so we say you're reinstating it.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I thought it was already pretty solid.
I think Dr. DeJulia, our principal, he had to send an email reinstating the policy because people were not listening to it. So, and still using their phones during class periods and not respecting their teachers.
Oh, by reinstate, you mean like reminding?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say it was never really rescinded.
But basically, the rule is you can carry it around with you, you just
Yeah.
can't bring it out.
Yeah, you can take it out. Pretty much.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, committee, we'll, oh, yes, you'll need to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Liza, Earl Centers, and I've just been working on this goal for a while, and I would listen to you all in committee time all winter, just like I knew you were working on really important stuff, and that's why you couldn't get it off the wall. And so one theme that I kept hearing was teacher morale and teacher retention, and how do we support teachers? And I so appreciated that, coming from a family of educators. So I really wanted to help you see how this bill would do so much in that vein. And so I spent probably about 15 hours working on the video that she wanted to show you if there was time. And I'm just wondering if we could use committee time to just watch that video of the Harwood teachers.
That might have been the one I sent to the committee this morning.
Yeah,
So they have it.
I just wonder if we could watch it, because I know you're all so busy and like
How long is
committee
it?
time. It's like 20 minutes.
We have time, and I should have offered that to the folks who were here, since it was their production.
Thank you. Would you like to stay on live stream or go on?
Why don't we go off live stream?